Welcome back. The multi-party coalition agreement in the City of Johannesburg hangs in the balance. Jamah-ah has dropped out of a coalition with the Democratic Alliance, leaving the DA 3 votes short of a majority. So what does this mean for the city in 2022? To tell us more, I'm joined by reporter Govan Whittles. Govan, thank you so much. Tell us what Jamah-ah is saying in the lead up to this first council sitting.
Well, it's saying that it's not part of the multi-party coalition that the Democratic Alliance announced towards the end of last year with all of the other parties there at the Sheraton Hotel in Pretoria. And this is interesting because that multi-party coalition had 10 parties in it, and it was also announced by Mpho Phalatse, Dr. Phalatse, the mayor of Johannesburg, when she introduced her MMCs towards the end of last year. And it's important because there are a number of crucial issues which are coming up for the Democratic Alliance-led coalition in the city of Johannesburg. So it has 6 main partners across the country. They are Action SA, the IFP, the Freedom Front Plus, the ACDP, and a few other parties. But it was the inclusion of Jamah-ah which pushed the DA over the line in the city of Johannesburg, leaving it without the necessary option of counting on the EFF's votes. And now we've heard from Jamah-ah, they're saying that they're not part of the coalition because the Democratic Alliance's values fundamentally contradicts theirs, and they're in support of Palestine, while the Democratic Alliance, Jamah-ah says, supports Israel, and they can't work with a party which holds that position. So they've dropped out. As you said, the DA is 3 votes short of a majority. This does leave the door open for the ANC to form a coalition to try and take power from the DA, but all of that won't be possible without the EFF. And just yesterday we heard Julius Malema say the EFF will keep the ANC out of power at that Siyabonga rally in KwaZulu-Natal. So the DA is now again in the position it found itself in after the 2016 local government elections, where it will count on the EFF's votes to try and govern the city of Johannesburg, to pass that budget and to elect chairpersons of oversight committees. Interestingly, in Ekurhuleni, the EFF voted with the ANC, and the chairpersons of oversight committees there are made up of a number of EFF and ANC council members. So will the same happen in Johannesburg? It's unlikely, but the DA is in a tough corner.
Govan, just taking a slight step backwards, surely those clashes in ideology existed before coalition talks even took place. So we need to make the distinction between Jamah-ah dropping out of the coalition now. Was that coalition stable, or were there instabilities at the time of announcing that multi-party government? We've
got some of the details of exactly what happened. So the councillor in Lenasia, Imran Musa, had run in the by-election and won Lenasia's award for Jamah-ah the first time. He ran again in the local government election. He got 8,000 votes. And because of that, Jamah-ah not only has the award, they also have 3 seats in council, bolstered their PR seats. But Jamah-ah saying that Councillor Musa had engaged with the Democratic Alliance, saying that he was keen to come on board with the multi-party coalition. And once the DA moved those negotiations from the local councillor to the national level, the leadership in Cape Town, that's where some of the hurdles started to pop up, and specifically the question of Israel and Palestine. And that's been the stumbling block. It seems like the Democratic Alliance won't pursue this issue any further and is looking at other ways of securing that majority. Remember that the Patriotic Alliance also walked away from this multi-party coalition, and they also have enough seats to push the DA over the line. So perhaps they'll be going in that direction, but Jamah-ah doesn't seem to be the option for the multi-party coalition because of the discrepancy between that local councillor and the national leaders. And we have it in good authority that Jamah-ah is meeting with the ANC tomorrow, specifically to discuss the city of Johannesburg. So it looks like the first sitting will be a tough sitting for the multi-party coalition, and we might expect some moves from the ANC and other opposition parties in the city.
Another stumbling block is a planned march by members of Action SA. Tell us how that factors into the first sitting.
Very interesting development from last year spilling over into this year. I've spoken to some of these members. Their membership has been terminated by the Action SA's national leadership, the top leaders as well. That's after they claimed that they did all the work in Soweto for the party, and then they were left out of the lists. You'd see that list includes Herman Mashaba, the leader of the party, John Moody, the Gauteng leader as well as Funzi Ngobeni. He's the former MMC in the council. Some of these Action SA campaigners, members, wanted to get into the Johannesburg Council. They're unhappy with that. In response, their membership has been terminated, but they'll go ahead with that march on the 13th of January, demanding some action. Of course, now they don't have any standing to call for that action, and it's more to register their protest, but we'll keep a close eye on that and see whether it'll affect how the council is run once those sittings get underway.
Govan, in the wake of last year's local government elections, we spoke ad nauseum about the importance of stable coalitions in ensuring service delivery takes place. Now we see the results of instability before the council has even started its work. Where does that leave residents of Johannesburg?
But leaves them with some uncertainty about how services will be delivered by this new coalition government. And unfortunately, it looks like a little bit of more of the same, except last time in the 2016 elections, Herman Mashaba was able to get an effective start to his coalition government. This time, it looks like that majority is not secured, so it will be more bargaining and hoping that the EFF will vote with that multi-party coalition with the DA in it so that they can pass the budget, elect those chairpersons of oversight committees, and then start to do the work that the council and the city is supposed to do.
Govan, last question. When coalition agreements were being negotiated last year, many journalists, analysts and even ordinary South Africans said that the details of those agreements need to be made public so that we know exactly what kind of trade-offs had been made, especially in terms of leadership positions. Unfortunately, the details of those agreements are still privileged backroom information. Do you think making that kind of information public would have had any kind of difference in this specific situation?
So what they did at the Sheraton was to release the documentation on which the coalitions would be based. So that is the agreement which stipulates a number of clauses in how they'll handle certain things that come up. But what they haven't made public is the details of the negotiations between the different parties and exactly how deals were reached. So they've achieved a level of transparency in setting out how they'll govern their coalitions. The public looking for more information regarding how those negotiations happened and what those trade-offs were. That's with increasing suspicion around how certain contracts would be awarded in the city, and to try and keep an eye on the different portfolios that have been given to coalition partners. And that kind of interest is well justified by the public since it is tax money involved, but the parties have been clear in saying that they believe they have achieved transparency by making some portions of the agreement governing their coalitions public.